All right. Good morning, everyone. In this video, I'm going to discuss half of chapter 4. I'm recording it because, as I said last class on Friday, I'm not going to be here. So please watch this as if it was an actual lecture for the class. Chapter 4 is about the mind-body problem. But before we even get to that, we have to go over some definitions first. Monism is the idea that the world is made of one thing. Everything in the world can be reduced to one thing. Flowers, birds, people, butterflies, weavers, suns, we can reduce them to one thing. Idealism says the one thing you can reduce everything to is mind. Mind is real, mind is fundamental, matter is not truly there. Materialism says you could reduce everything to matter, atoms, molecules, cells. Everything in the world can be reduced to that. Dualism says actually there are two kind of things: matter and mind, matter and mind. And pluralism says actually the world is too complicated, the world is too complex, there's too much going on. You can't reduce everything to one thing or two things or three things. Flowers are real, birds are real, but music is real. But music is not made of atoms and molecules like flowers and birds. So you can't really reduce everything in the world to one thing or two things. The mind body problem is this problem. Um, People have bodies, people have minds. I can see a body, I can touch it, I can smell it, I can kiss it, I can hug it, but the mind seems to be something non-physical, something immaterial. We can't perceive mind, we can't see mind, we can't measure mind. So if the body is physical, the mind is non-physical, the body is material, the mind is immaterial. How do the two work? How does the body affect the mind? How does the mind affect the body? Okay, the body is physical, mind is non-physical, but we seem to have both of them in us. So how is it the two of them? The two of them work. And by mind and soul, in this context, mind and soul, I'm using them to mean the same thing. The word soul in Greek is psyche, and Latin is anima. In ancient times, the word soul used to mean the breath of life, the source of life, whatever animates life, whatever gives life to our bodies, to ourselves, to things. This is what we refer as soul. So if I were to die today, you measure my body, mass, weight, size, height, color, everything would be the same, but except the soul is not there. So the soul is supposed to be the source of life, that which animates, that which gives life. So this is why the word animal, you see, animals come from the word anima. So since the soul is that which is the source of life, this means everything that is alive has a soul. Everything that is alive has a soul. So this means plants have a soul. They engage in reproduction, growth, and nutrition, so they will have some kind of soul, but except the soul of a person will be different from the soul of a plant. This would mean the animals like dogs, cats, birds, butterflies, they also have a soul, but they can do more than the plants because the animals they can move, locomotion, they have senses, and they engage in sense cognition. They perceive the world as as well. But again, the soul of a dog, a cat, a bird would be very different from the soul of a person. And human beings, since we're alive, so what we have is called a rational soul or spirit. So we engage in nutrition and growth and reproduction, like the plants, locomotion, sense appetite, sense cognition, like the animals. But the main difference between our souls and them would be these two: intellect and will. So again, the soul does not primarily mean thinking, consciousness, intellect, will. The soul is the source of life, but in human beings, the soul has higher qualities. Again, we call them intellect, and will. In other words, the soul is what we say is the form of the body. The soul is that which organizes, drive, directs the body. When a woman is pregnant, um, sperm and egg they combine, they created a zygote, and after 9 months of pregnancy, a person is born. So what is it? What is it that is guiding, driving the whole process? So in that idea, it would be the soul. Okay, so the soul organizes, drives the body to um, to its goal. Now, the common sense view is called substance dualism. Substance dualism. Again, if you were to meet anyone in the street, pretty much that's what they would tell you. A person is a combination of the body and the soul. Okay, this is called substance dualism or Cartesian dualism, but except the mind or the soul and the body, they're very different. The body is physical, material. The body is made of atom, molecules, cells, tissues, organ. The body is in space. People can see the body, hug the body, kiss the body. The body eventually dies. The body suffers. The body ages. But the soul, the mind is very different. So this is why if I were to ask you, show me your soul, show me your body, show me your soul, show me your consciousness, show me your spirit, notice you can't. The soul, the mind, the consciousness, the spirit seems to be something non-physical, something imman, immaterial. But again, this is the common sense view of things. So René Descartes, the man famous for saying, I think, therefore I am. He's famous for Cartesian dualism. He says, again, pretty much, all reality is made of two things, material things and immaterial things. Again, trees, flowers, peoples, butterflies, weavers, birds, they're made of material things. The essence of material things is extension. Again, this table has a length and a width and a height and a size and a weight and a shape and a color and a size and a temperature. The qualities go on and on and on. All physical things, all material things have qualities that we can measure, we can quantify. But notice your thoughts, your consciousness, your will doesn't have a color. Is your soul blue or yellow or red or black? Uh, what is the shape of your soul? Is it triangular, rectangular? Is it more like a circle? How much does your soul weigh? My body is 170, but does my soul have a weight? Uh, does my soul have a size and a height and a length? Notice all the qualities that apply to physical things, material things, the things we perceive with the five senses. If you apply the same language to the mind, the soul, it doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense to say, I am 5 feet 10, I'm a black man, my weight is 170. But I cannot say my soul is 5 feet 10, my soul is black, the weight of my soul is 170. It doesn't make any sense. See? So again, it seems that physical qualities, the qualities of the body, the qualities of things, physical things, they're very different from the qualities of the mind. So a person is supposed to be a combination of these, of these two. So again, this is the common sense view. It's called substance dualism or Cartesian dualism. Mind and body, they're very different, very different. But somehow, my body can affect my mind can affect my body. If I think of raising my hand goes up. Even though my mind doesn't have a mass, doesn't have force, doesn't have strength, physical strength, but you see, somehow, the mind, the soul, the spirit can affect the body. But again, they're very, very different things. So, to summarize this, substance dualism, a person is a combination of two things: body, soul. The body is material, physical. Science studies our bodies. The soul is immaterial. The soul directs the body. The soul and the body, they interact. When you're thinking, you're not thinking with the brain. The brain does not think. I know this is contrary to what brain sciences tell us, but according to this idea, you're thinking with your soul. Souls are different from thoughts. Souls have thoughts. So you think with soul, you don't think with your brain. The body ages, the body suffers, the body dies, but the soul itself is immortal. The soul can die. This means then, to some extent, essentially you are a soul. The body is something you have, right? This is why we don't say I am a body, we say I have a body. So truly, in your essence, you are a soul, you are a spirit. The body is something that you have. Except this idea makes it sound as if the soul is a little thing inside the body. Many people, the way they say it, it's not the soul that is in the body, it's actually the body that is in the soul. Okay? It is not the soul that is in the body, it is the body, it's the body that is in the soul. The soul is bigger, larger, greater than the body. The same way things exist in space, things exist in space, then the body exists, and the soul. Now, why do people argue for this? Why did Descartes think that people have immaterial souls? He gave two arguments. One is called the conceivability argument. Basically, he says that you can imagine you exist without having a body. See, but you cannot imagine you exist without having a mind. Let's say this morning you get out of bed, you walk to the bathroom, and you look into the mirror. You expect to see your head, your face, but you notice you don't see your face. You look at your hands, you don't see any hands. Your body, your legs, you notice they're all gone. See, if you do this exercise, Descartes thinks you would conclude, you see, you can imagine you're real, you exist, but except you don't have a body. Then if you can imagine you exist without a body, then it's logically possible you could exist even though you don't have a body. This means, again, having a body then is not essential to me. The body is something that I have, the body is not me. But notice he says, you can't imagine you existing without having a mind. Then the mind is essential, the body is not essential. I can conceive that I exist, I don't have a body, but I can't conceive that I exist and I don't have a mind. Therefore, the mind is essential to me, the body is not essential. The mind is what I am, the body is something that I have. Now, it's questionable because some people would reject this argument. They say, okay, see if you could do this. Imagine you exist, you don't have a body. What does this look like? You don't have a body. This means you don't have eyes. So this means you can't see. You don't have lips. You can't eat. You can't speak. You don't have five senses, so you can't hear. So how would a soul exist separately, independently from the body? So Descartes claimed he can conceive that, he can imagine that. But again, I'm asking you, see if you yourself, you can imagine you exist. You exist is just the mind the soul, but you don't have a body. It would be like the virtual world, like some sort of like your mind is somehow in some virtual world, but you don't have a body. So again, he thinks he can, but some people say, well, I can't really imagine me existing. I'm so attached to my body. The idea that I can exist without my body, this doesn't make sense. He gave a second argument, divisibility argument. He said minds can't be divided, bodies can be. Any physical things, your body, this cell phone, this table, notice you could break them, divide them, cut them into different parts, different pieces. Notice a thought can't be divided, right? Because thoughts don't have size and shape and see dimensions, physical dimensions, thoughts don't have them. Imagination can't be divided. Some people would push back and say, well, not so fast. There are people who have multiple personality disorders. It seems as if there are multiple things, multiple people in them. It seems there are different centers of consciousness in them. But personally, I don't think this proves mind soul um, can be divided exactly the way the body can. Again, take this cell phone, take anything physical, you could break them into smaller parts, smaller parts, smaller parts. You can physically divide them. But a thought, a memory, an idea, something you imagine, you conjure up in your mind, you see, those things can't be um, divided the way physical things can be. Other reasons, some people believe you need the soul to explain free will. If human beings are just machines, we're just collection of self-replicating molecules, free will would not exist. We'll discuss this in chapter 5. So we need the soul to explain free will. We need the soul to explain the very fact that we can think, and we can think of universal things, not just single things we see around us. We can think of universal things. We don't think with the brain. How can the brain think? The brain is chemicals, a lot of chemicals, a lot of cells, neuron firing, yes. But if the brain is a bunch of particles, chemicals, cells playing ping pong, highly complex stuff, but the brain is still a bunch of chemicals, how is it those chemicals somehow think? They create thought, consciousness, memories, ideas, truth, beauty, love. So there's got to be more to a human being. We are not just physical bodies. Some says we need the souls to explain creativity. See, machines can't really create. We program them to do the things that they do, essentially. Some says we need the souls to explain things like out of body experiences. There are people that have experiences like these. There are cases somebody is clinically dead. The doctor says you are dead, clinically dead. They could hear the doctor saying you are dead, and then somehow their souls, well, they see themselves rising, leaving their bodies, and then they approach a bright light. They have an overwhelming sense of peace and friendliness and joy. And then sometimes there's a voice that comes out of the bright light, and the voice speaks to them, and the voice sends them back. You hear those stories all the time. There's got to be some truth to them. There's a story of a woman. She was struck by lightning. She was struck by lightning. She passed out for 5 minutes. People who saw the whole thing was trying to revive her, bring her back for 5 minutes. When she came back after 5 minutes, she said she was somewhere else for 2 weeks. She wrote a whole book about this stuff. Imagine you pass out for 5 minutes. Everybody see you pass out for 5 minutes. They're trying to bring you back. So if you pass out, this means you're not conscious. This means you're not supposed to be able to see or feel or taste or experience anything because it's supposed to be just darkness. You pass out. This means you are not conscious. But except when she came back, she explained that she went somewhere else for 2 weeks. She met different people. She met what we would call God. So again, it's not clear how we explain those things. Science, at the moment, science doesn't really get into those things. We still see them. Maybe there was some natural, rational, perfectly scientific explanation for them. Maybe the brain can create those things. Maybe the brain creating hallucinations. But except if the person is unconscious, the person pass out, so how can you perceive hallucinations created by the brain? How can you say you were somewhere for 2 weeks? So again, for reasons like that, people would claim, believe that yes, 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 human beings, we're not just bag of self-replicating molecules. There's more, there's more, there's more to us. The idea that we have souls lead to what's called anthropocentrism. Anthropos mean man, like anthropology. So basically, anthropocentrism says human beings are the center of the universe. We are the central, most significant reality in the world. To put this in religious language, the world was made for us. We are at the center. The animals, um, they mostly engage in surviving. You know, they eat and they drink and they sleep, they have sex, they reproduce, some of them play, and they have friendship, they have some sort of love as well, loving relationship. But notice since human beings have intellect and will, we don't simply try to survive. In fact, when all physical needs are met, notice we ask questions, we search, we wonder, we ponder. We don't just accept the world for what the world is. We try to decipher to understand why the world exists. What is it we're doing here? Is there a purpose to all that? But you see, the animals can't do that. The idea is that probably because there's something divine in us. There's this soul thing, this spirit thing that is in us. Partially, though, this is why the animals they don't have all the rights people have. Notice we use animals as a source of food. Notice we take drugs, cosmetics, medications on them before we actually sell them um, to people. So again, anthropocentrism, man-centered, human beings are the center of the world because we have souls. Back then, when people thought there were only 9 planets and the Earth was the center and everything goes on the Earth, it made sense to believe that. But nowadays, you could question that because we know the universe is really, really, really big. Now, objections. Some says Cartesian dualism, the idea that you have a physical body, a non-physical soul, and the real you is the soul. This doesn't make sense. Why? If mind and bodies, they're mutually exclusive. That is, they don't have the same properties. Body is material, mind is immaterial. Then tell me, how do they work? How is it they're connected? If I think of raising my hand, again, my hand goes up. But you see, a thought doesn't have mass and size and length and weight and temperature. So how can in non-physical stuff, in immaterial stuff, thought in my mind somehow cause my hand to go up? If I drank, those chemicals get into my brain and they cause my mind to get drunk. You begin to perceive the world very differently. So you see, if mind and body are very, 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 very different, then what happens to the body shouldn't affect the mind because they have nothing in common. Again, bodies have shape and size and color and smell and temperature and weight and all those qualities. The soul doesn't have them. The soul is its main characteristic seems to be to think. So intellect, thinking, willing. You see, so again, they have mutually exclusive properties. So where do they meet? You see, you can't say the soul is in the brain Because if the soul is something non-physical, it can't exist. It doesn't have any special location. It can't be in my brain. The soul can't be in my left hand. It can't really be there. One way to think about it. Let's say um, a shark wanted to meet a lion and have a fight. The lion is on dry land, the shark is in the middle of the ocean. You see, where would they two meet? Where would a lion meet a shark to have a fight? The shark won't come on dry land. The lion will not go, cannot go deep into the ocean. You see, they can't meet because they're so different. Likewise, if mind and body are so different, you see, where do they meet? How do they interact? How do they cause each other to do anything? Notice I experience myself, you experience yourself as one thing, right? Number two, some says Cartesian dualism, therefore, is incompatible with science for two reasons. You see, science studies the things we can measure. If there's a soul, well, at least so far, we can't access that. Again, if you were to open up the brain of somebody, you'll see, chemicals, blood vessels, neurons, but you can't really access consciousness. You can't really perceive the soul. And also in science, they say every physical event has a physical cause. So, but if there's this immaterial soul causing things to happen in the world, again, I think of raising my hand goes up, but except my thoughts doesn't have a mass, size, and shape and color. So how can so people claim, well, we can't explain that. Personally, I think these are not deadly objections because what if you compare this soul to space? See, this table exists in space. This building exists in space. FAU exists in space. The whole planet exists in space. But notice you can't touch space. I can touch this table, but this space, I can't touch it. The space doesn't have a color and a smell, right? You see, then this means the properties of space, they're very different from the properties of the things that exist in space. So could it be the soul or the spirit or the mind or the consciousness is something like space? So again, the same way physical things exist in space, they appear in space. It could be that bodies exist and souls, bodies exist and mind. Could be. Now, there are people who try to save dualism. They try to save that. They say yes, minds are real, souls are real, bodies are real, but they're like parallel lines, parallelism. Back in high school, we called the teachers two parallel lines on a flat surface. They never meet. They go on forever. They never touch. So could it be mind or souls and bodies? They're like that. But even if you were to say yes, they're like parallel, you still see this doesn't solve it. How do they work? Where do they meet? How does my body, my soul, cause my body to do anything? How does my body cause my soul, my mind to do anything? Some says, well, yeah, they're parallel, but what if uh, what if God interferes and make them touch? You see, this is called occasionalism. Occasionalism. If I'm thinking of raising my hand, since the thought doesn't have mass, so the thought can't exercise force. So it's not really the thought that causes my hand to go up. Could it be I think of raising my hand, God saw that, and God causes the hand to go up? This sounds silly. So that's how far somebody would go to make this thing work. A man called Leibniz, German philosopher, he proposed the idea of pre-established harmony. Pre-established harmony. Basically, he says when God was making the world, God made mind, souls, and physical things. God programmed the two to work together. The same way you could have multiple clocks, watches, clocks, you program them to have the exact same time, but even though they don't really influence it, each other. They don't cause each other to do anything. Likewise, when I'm thinking of raising my hand goes up, is because since the creation of the world, God programs mental activities and bodily activities to happen at the same time. God knows the future. God knows today I would be recording this video. God knows I would be giving that example. I would be then raising my hand. Then God programmed the thought and the raising of the hand to happen. But it's not really my thought that goes, so that causes the hand to go up. You see, that's how far someone would go to make sure dualism actually works. Again, it's really, really hard. Once you say they're mutually exclusive, all the properties of the body are very different from the properties of the mind. This means they share no common basis, nothing in common, nothing. So again, how do they meet? Where do they meet? How do they cause each other to do anything? Some propose what's called property dualism. Dualism, this idea basically says, yes, there are two things, but the mind actually emerges from the brain. The mind, the spirit, the soul, the consciousness emerges from the brain, but you can't reduce it to the brain. Brain creates mind, but you can't explain mind in terms of brain. The same way, water emerges from hydrogen and oxygen. If you have one molecule of hydrogen, two molecules, you can't drink them. If you have one molecule of oxygen, you can't drink it. But if you combine the two, they give you water. And water, you can drink water. You could swim in water. You can drown in water. Water has different properties. You see, hydrogen, you can't drink, you can't swim in it. Oxygen, same thing. But if you combine the two, they give you something slightly different. So could it be the brain is something like, well, could it be the mind something like that? Hydrogen, oxygen, they give you water. Chemical interactions in the brain, they give you mind. But except scientifically, we can explain how water creates, how hydrogen and oxygen create water, but we do not know, at least so far, how brain chemicals would create um, mind. Epiphenomenalism, this idea says yes, brain create mind. There are two things, yes, brain creates mind, but mind has have no effect on the brain. You see, mental activities of mind simply accompany physical processes. Again, yes, there are two things, bodies are real, minds are real, but except the minds don't have any effect on the body. Like fire, a fire can create smoke, but the smoke itself can't put out the fire. The smoke doesn't have any influence, any effect on the fire. Or let's say you're studying outside, there's sunlight, you see your own shadow, but the shadow has no effect on you. So the shadow is epiphenomenal. The smoke is epiphenomenal. They're there, but they're like on the surface, floating on the surface. They have no real relationship. This makes no sense. Notice what this would mean. If this idea is true, epiphenomenalism, so if you're thinking of going to New York City, you go online and buy a ticket and you fly to New York City. So since thinking, thoughts, those things are epiphenomenal, they don't really affect the mind, then the fact that you thought of buying the ticket, you actually flew to New York City, the action of flying to New York City has nothing to do with the mind, with the fact that you thought about it. The same way the smoke has no effect on the fire, the shadow has no effect on you, uh, the thoughts have no effect on your behavior. Nobody believes that. No one. So To conclude this, um, let's go back and do a brief summary. This chapter is about mind and body. What is a mind? Can everything have a mind? Can this table have a mind? Can a computer have a mind? Can we build a machine that can think for itself, a machine that has a mind? Uh, can the mind exist separately from the body? The body will die. Can the spirit or the soul or the mind survive that? Can we create one? Okay. So the main idea, and if you will, the common sense view is what we call dualism. And dualism says, yes, there are two different type of things. A person is a combination of both. Um, People can see your body, they can hug you, they can kiss you, but the soul or the spirit is really, really there. And the spirit is the soul, sorry, the spirit and the soul is the source of life. The body, the body ages, the body suffers, the body dies, but the soul is supposed to be immaterial, non-physical, and because of that, the soul is immortal. So some people claim actually they can experience this. They can experience this. I don't know. I've never experienced this, but I think it would be joyful. The fear of death is the greatest fear people have. Imagine if you could experience, not belief, not believing. Imagine if you could have an experience that show you there's something in you, the part of you, your true self can never die. Your true self is everlasting. You see how joyful our liberated people would would be. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. I will see you next week. Okay. The week after.